All right. So Keiichi, he kills Teppei, right? And then afterwards, he finds Takano, all that. The night after that, uh, he starts having these emotions about how it feels to have lost his innocence, about the cruel things he did, the crime he just committed. And he says, but it was worth it. It was worth it because Teppei's gone now. Then he goes to school, and everyone seems to be having the same story that he actually did not, he was not missing from their group during the Watanagashi festival, that he was with them, and that everyone seems to be sharing this memory, which Keiichi himself does not. And then he, at the end of the school day, Keiichi's like, "Hey, everyone, let's be together. Let's have another club session to that today." He's hoping that he can help relieve some of Satoko's stress, some of her pain. But Satoko starts. She has an episode. She starts screaming and breaking down and yelling about her uncle and how cruel he was to her last night, which is impossible in Keiichi's mind because he is or should be already dead and buried. Then Keiichi starts getting paranoid. He was already paranoid because he let Takano go, or he feels in his mind he let Takano go. I think Takano let him go. And so now Keiichi is losing his mind. He's thinking, I killed that guy, right? Everyone's saying I was with them. That shouldn't be possible. So he thinks to get his head checked. And then once he goes over to the clinic, he finds it's Coach Irie there, who is the doctor, the resident doctor. And he confesses to his crime to him. But Coach Irie steps out, and Keiichi finds that Coach Irie is talking to other people about sedating him and about what they're going to tell his parents and all this. And so Keiichi feels betrayed, and he escapes. And after escaping, he has to find out what actually happened, because everyone is sharing the story that he was not missing from the Watanagashi festival, and that Teppei is still alive and he was still hurting Satoko. So now he's wondering, did I kill someone else? What happened? So he has to unearth the body and figure out what to see if the tattoo on the body, if it's there, and if it's not there, then he will have killed someone. And he says, well, if I ended up killing someone, now I'm guilty of a crime. Now I have to go kill Teppei. But as he's doing that, as he's unearthing the body, and he's tired and he's exhausted, and it's raining again, the cops show up, Detective Oishi, and they tell him to keep digging, and they make him dig, and he digs up, and he's digging so much that he gets tired. They throw him out of the hole, and they continue digging, the detectives, and Detective Ochi is like, what are we gonna find there, huh? And really strong arming Keiichi, but they don't find anything. They say, we went beyond where anything was buried. We feel like the earth was soft here, but we went beyond that, and now we just find a metal pipe, some drainage pipe. And so they mysteriously, one of the most mysterious things, they don't take him in for questioning. They just leave him alone. They just slowly walk away from him, which I think is like that's weird, strange behavior from even the police. And I think that's where we left off. I don't know if Keiichi's going to be at his home or what, but I think Keiichi is not in a good place mentally. Doesn't understand what's happening or why. And then what were the tips again? Oh yeah, I forgot. One more thing. This one. This one sounds like I think that someone is being abused and they're having delusions. This is what this sounds like. This. Jesus. All right. Anyways, the body wasn't there. Yikes. The police didn't arrest me because of that, but I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Satoko had said, I'd failed to kill their uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much, no matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Satoko, I became a demon. And this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I had fallen into the demon world. And if that price had been in exchange for the life of Satoko's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Satoko's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him, I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Satoko was liberated. I had already woken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, at just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I'd hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Hold on. I thought so. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Satoko's sake, the only thing on my mind had been killing. I've said it was for Satoko, but while I was actually carrying out the act, I had completely forgotten about Satoko, albeit only temporarily. Yeah, you went kind of crazy, you went mad. Maybe initially it was for Satoko's sake, but now I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing. And as a result, I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon, feeling a lot of guilt about killing Teppei. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Satoko, become a demon, then disappeared from the sunlit Inamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. In a way, that is what happened, which meant that, after all that was said and done, I'd meet the same fate as him. I tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway, which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was a second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing. Oh yeah, this too. He's hearing auditory delusions.
お前、ひょっとして、サトシなのか?
The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer. But I felt a strange kind of relief that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time, we will set Satoko free for sure. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now, when I'd been out way too late for 2 days in a row, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have time to allow for that to happen. Today, I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes, and then take them with me so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. I'd do it again, I'd kill him again, and this time I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find the weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun, even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing had ever happened. Both me and the other, Keiichi Maibara. Even without me, he'd fill in, I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Keiichi Maibara would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Satoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her nini. These are crazy ass thoughts, you know that? Like, this is insane. Like, I think I'm an imposter living in this strange world. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough.
これは怖いな。こいつにするか。
It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I brought it in some little old newspaper and tossed it into the basket of my bike.
連日、悪い用事に使ってばかりで悪いな。今日も頼むぜ。俺の足。
He's talking to himself a lot. I apologized to my bike for some reason. Yeah, you're not okay. That's why you're talking to inanimate objects. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I've been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way for me to get to the station since it was far away. So I'd always used it to go back and forth from cram school. I'd only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket too. I never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in here. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever, had some of the best, greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had to risk my life to do it. That's how fun those times had been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay. But still, the times I had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing a crime, as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yep, this was a value I decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. Okay. I thought back to when I'd first come to Hinamizawa. About how on the very first day, Satoko had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. That went for Mion, Rena, and Rika too. Wasn't Satoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? This time, Satoko would try to look cool. Then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. Then Satoko would cry, which would put Rena in a state of ecstasy. Rika would be greatly delighted. Sounds like Rika was just there, and I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Satoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So, basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back.
ナイトなら武器は剣だろ。ツーハンデッドのかっこいいやつ。
Yeah, you're gonna mention the bat.
錆びた肉厚のナタで挑むナイトは 多分、古今東西俺一人だな。
That shows me I was wrong. Then I saw an old person in the ridge of a field waving to me.
おや圭一くんかい。朝のサイクリングかいね。
おはようございます。
I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy, waving like that? Satoko's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. The cicadas had woken up too, and the next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two in the head, and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath, then tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or that I'd killed him and he'd risen from the bed, or your friends know that what's happening and they're covering for you, and someone had gone to collect the evidence to dispose of it harder than you did. Also another possibility. It's hard to... What I actually think happened is maybe... Yeah, he did kill him. He did kill... Yeah, that's what because I think Satoko's also having delusions as well. I think he did kill Teppei, and someone else disposed of Teppei's body. Watch, I be super wrong. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If it had been an illusion, then that would make all of this Hinazawa I was in right now an illusion. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to the traffic accident, and I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends in rice paddies like these. That was a terrifying thought, though. Yeah, if you're in Jacob's ladder. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. No, he's not in Jacob's ladder. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even wield curses. Takano-san had probably died because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Oishi died too, like I'd cursed them too yesterday, then I'd believe it. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't here. Of course it wasn't. I sent it down to hell that night, throwing it into the Onigafuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either. The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone down to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. If her uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Then I would just show myself in and wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there... Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison, dulling my actions, but it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped in newspaper. This is one thing I do like about the visual novel. You get to see what they're feeling. How exactly, I mean, the anime did a good job of showing how they feel when they start to go nuts, but this is like, you're understanding what's going on in their head when they're starting to lose it. Its weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. I hadn't put on my watch, so I didn't know what time it was, but it was probably still a little before 7. Satoko would probably be awake, preparing breakfast and her lunch, but her uncle would probably be lazing around in bed. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Satoko open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Satoko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. Yeah, are you going to do this in front of Satoko? If he's alive? If I ran into her, what would I say? I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. I don't think she will. No, I couldn't do that. That would be like making Satoko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait inside. Maybe that would do it. How would Satoko react to that? She would probably try and get me to give up on killing him. I would have to lie somehow to get her to go outside. Satoko didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur in this house. I didn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. Then slowly turned it and pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Satoko's house hit me. At the entrance, there was a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at him. I could hear a television on somewhere. The television was in a messy, dry dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Yeah, this looks like my room. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it, meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight. No sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and be hiding, waiting for me? No, he didn't. He's not psychic. The tension I felt was so thick, so tight, that I thought it would choke me. What is that? Oh. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. It tightened my grip on it, then, very carefully, took a look around. I tightened my grip on it. Where had those peaceful feelings been before I arrived here? Gone. Another butchery. Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow. And got on my knees. And then I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then was this last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of the second-story window. It was highly possible that room was his own and that he slept there. I tiptoed at the edges of the stairs, quietly climbing, without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snoring. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about. Completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package of side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Satoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The numbers stamped onto the food packages read 830620, so June 20. Yeah, that was yesterday, and there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner, and Satoko's uncle would have been here then. I don't know about that. Stop it, Keiichi. No, think about it, because even if you killed the uncle, she would still think that he was coming home, so she would still make the food. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. No, it's not. He had found fault with Satoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was the lit a flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? Bump. I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room where I was standing too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that in this house, time had stopped ever since that some moment last night. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked in the clothing basket and saw Satoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it. Certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then an electric surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Could she? She couldn't possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible. But no. In Hinamizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly, then quietly pulled aside the glass door. Hot, steaming air burst out the slight opening. A whole night? Once I ran out of water in like half an hour. This is all night? It's still going? The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so it went completely white with the steam. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed, to know who it was.
Satoko!
No answer. Satoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. This is dire. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise, as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Satoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as if her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll as she laid there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Satoko's small body out of the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die. Satoko's body was lighter than I'd expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for a cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Satoko moaned again.
大丈夫かサトコ俺だケイチだわかるか聞こえるか
Satoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely unconscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in gym class or something? I turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked a towel in it. I then took the cold towel and pressed it onto Satoko's forehead. Satoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns, right, you would soak the burned spot under running water. Then, could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? Don't do that. No, if it was that sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart, and she'd go into shock. I think I've read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could probably give her. Just call the police. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur.
大丈夫かサトコもう大丈夫だからな必ず俺がニーニーが助けてやるからな
5039 5040
I do not think Tepe made her stay there until the count of 10,000. I think she's doing this. She did it to herself. I think that's what happened. What was Satoko reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words she kept saying. And at that moment, I understood what they were for.
サトコ、お前数を数えてるのか？なんで？
People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Satoko was counting like that. But 5039?
バカ野郎！お前の家の風呂はいくつ数える決まりになってんだよ！
I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. 10,000?
ふざけるなバカ野郎！1万なんて数えられるバカがどこにいるんだよ数えられるわけねえだろ
The other thing is, I don't think Tepe ever, well, I mean, he definitely put her hands on her because she had bruises that were, if you inspected her closely, you can see them. But he didn't go this far.
その前にユダって死んじまうに決まってんだろどうしてこんなことに
At least not that we've seen. No evidence for that yet.
おじまが
Last night, her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and was inedible. You're making this up yourself. Satoko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she'd usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables she brought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originated from Satoko and shouted at her that she never ever took baths. And then he put Satoko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted to... I snapped and exploded. Raising the newspaper-wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stomped a hole through them. Then I found the futon in the room I thought to be our uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'll bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the walls here? I smashed into the wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose into the air, and broken pieces scattered about the floor. I smashed all the glass windows too, for good measure. That ragged animal breathing at the end, I think that's his mania. After I destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Satoko. I went back to the changing room. Satoko was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but I still needed to go to the infirmary one more time. I needed to have a doctor look at Satoko. I thought about putting her in a dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on clothing her and decided to carry her in the bath towel. The clinic was close to Satoko's house. It would be way faster to carry her than to call 119 and get an ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand.
立てるか 俺が診療所までおぶって行ってやるから。
ありがとう。ですわ。
She called him brother here, Nisama. Her words sounded clearer than before. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even a little bit. She might be thinking that he's Satoshi. Satoko turned over so she was lying on her face, and then put up a weak struggle to get up on one knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off.
バスタオル。痛い。
すぐ着くから、しばらくの間だけ我慢してろ。
It didn't hurt one bit to carry Satoko. She was light, too light. The lightness actually made me feel uneasy. Outside, it had gotten hotter, as though eager to attack Satoko. Fucking cicadas. Why did it have to choose this morning to get so hot out? I didn't have time to swear at them. The clinic was this way. Hoisting Satoko on my back, I broke into a trot. Absolutely dire. The hilly road to the clinic, with which I had never had difficulties before, was now torturous. Yeah, you should have called the police. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point, my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy and made it hard to walk, but I think Keiichi's also having his own problems right now, like mental problems, that are manifesting as physical problems right now. I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go, at least not while Satoko's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Irie clinic came into sight, but I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in the parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I planned to leave Satoko in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist a message. But with that police officer Oishi here, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. Just go, dude. Like, just go. It doesn't
で
matter.
すの？パトカーがいっぱいいますですわよ。
I gently put Satoko down in the shade of the thicket.
わからない。様子を見てくるから、しばらくここにいろ。
レディをバスタオル1枚でこんなとこに置いてくなんてなってませんわね。
Or at least she can make jokes, but still, it, like, not looking
それ
good.
だけ悪態がつけりゃ大丈夫だ。
No! Let her in the fucking clinic. I'll be right back, I added, getting to my feet. Cautious of my surroundings, I hid myself behind a car and got closer to the officers grouped at the clinic's entrance. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably their leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told me to make tea yesterday, or told to make tea yesterday.
じゃあつまり最初に見つけたのは朝当番のあなただったと。
This is Oishi's partner.
それでどんな感じだったんです？
事務室の所長席のソファーに座って居眠りをしているように見えました。
Someone died in the clinic?
で、机の上に水差しと空き瓶になった睡眠薬があったんで、あなたはすぐに睡眠薬で自殺したんだと考えたと。
Someone was murdered, made to look like a suicide.
それで
高熱と瞳孔の拡大に重度の意識障害も見られました。睡眠薬中毒の典型的な重症例だと思いましたので。
警察も救急も呼ばずに？
ここは病院で私は医師ですよ。生命が危険な状態にあるなら直ちに治療して当然です。
ああ、まあいいからいいから。それで
呼吸が不正常だったので人工呼吸を施しました。合わせて呼吸刺激薬を投与。効果が出なかったので人工呼吸器の準備をし。
ああ、はいはい。それでつまりいろいろ頑張ったけど結局ダメだったと。そういうわけですよね。 通報は死んでから直ちに？
はい。救うことができず、とても残念です。
Just then, a radio in one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken mechanical voice.
こちら本部、こちら本部。小宮山さん、聞こえますか？どうぞ。
もしもし。小宮山です。ああ、お疲れ様です。睡眠薬での自殺みたいですね。遺書の類はなし。
Suicide? What the heck were they talking about? Someone had committed suicide at the clinic. But who? I wished Takano-san dead, and she died the next day. And yesterday, I wished Coach was dead. Then, could he have...
普段から睡眠薬を常用していたとかは？
あまり知りません。
日頃、疲れたとか死にたいとか、そんなこと言ってました？
入江先生は普段からああいう性格でしたから。とてもそんな風には。
So, I was right. Irie-sensei. They were talking about Coach. Coach killed himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. The only reason that came to mind was that I wanted him dead. This world was insane. If I wanted someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then what about Oishi? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted him to, then something should have happened to him too.
そちらに応援が向かいました。課長からそちらは応援に任せて大石社の捜索に戻るとのことです。
Missing.
了解しました。じゃあすいません。こっちに今応援が来てるそうですから、現場はこのままにしておいてください。おい、行くぞ。
The officers nodded and split up into the patrol cars. Did they just say searching for Oishi's car? Searching for his car. That meant he had gone missing? Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi. When I wished for it, the very next day, they disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead, and that's why people could utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were getting granted. At the time, I hadn't even been walking, and yet... Tap. I heard a footstep. And it wasn't the only one this time. Tap, tap. They came from behind. And they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder.
一体何事なんですの？
サトコか。脅かすなよ。
驚いたのはこっちでしてよ。
Yeah, let her in.
いきなり大声を出さないでくださいまし。
She can walk enough that she can go to the other doctor now. It was Satoko. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed able to be able to walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her earlier exhausted state.
具合はどうなんだ？もう大丈夫なのか？
まだ頭が痛いですけど、いつまでもこんな格好で表にいられませんもの。
She gave me a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky.
それより、これは一体何事なんですの？今、警察が話してるのを聞いてた限りじゃ。
監督が自殺したらしい。
え？
Satoko was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears.
ケイチさん、それ、本当ですの？何かの聞き間違いじゃないんですの？
確かにそう聞いたよ。入江先生が睡眠薬で自殺したって。
Satoko went down on her knees and broke out in tears.
嘘ですわ。監督が自殺なんて、そんなの絶対に。
As I watched Satoko crying and clawing at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was treating me like a madman yesterday, that he'd betrayed me, that I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who, to me, deserved to die, still must have had people who loved and respected him. Like Satoko here. Not me! In my selfish, egotistical anger, I wished for his death, and it was granted. And now Satoko was crying hysterically as a result. The guilt tore at my heart. I worked myself up to murder for Satoko's sake. I decided I wanted Satoko to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking someone's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Satoko's uncle's case, of course, nobody would be sad. So I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. Yes, you did. You did, though. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Satoko happy. And that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed himself. It wasn't my... Satoko still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up.
すまない。
And the only thing I could think of to say to her was an apology.
どうして謝りますの？
俺、昨日、監督と、喧嘩して、お前なんか死んじまえって呪ったんだ。呪ったから本当に死んじゃって。
Satoko looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Eventually, her expression softened as she interpreted my words in her own way.
圭一さんのせいではありませんわ。監督も大人ですもの。自分の命を捨てるに値する都合があって悩んだ末に選んだんですもの。誰のせいでもありませんわ。
She smiled a little, trying to comfort me.
いつまでもこのままでいたくありませんわ。
This is crazy that this is her first thought to make Keiichi feel better about what he just said is to smile herself. It's kind of sad.
服が欲しい。
Especially after her reaction to finding out he had killed himself, like, on the grass, crying.
いいのかよ。診療所に行って見てもらった方が。
服を着てから見てもらっても別に死にはしませんわ。
Satoko readjusted her bath towel and started back along the path. I'm sure they have close here. Her stride was wobbly, and it didn't look like she'd recovered as much as she let on. At first, Satoko tried to go back home, but it was the time of the morning when people were going to school and to work, so after seeing everyone walking around, she thought better of it. She must have been pretty embarrassed wearing only the towel.
理科のうちに行きますわよ。私の服、あるはずですから。どうしたんですの？圭一さん。
Satoko noticed I was hanging my head and spoke to me.
監督はああ見えても大人ですのよ。圭一さんと喧嘩したくらいで自殺するような人ではありませんわ。自分を責めるのをおやしなさいませ。
No, he got. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now, I couldn't discard the possibility. There was no such thing as impossible in this world.
この数日、おかしいんだ。
何がですの？
Satoko seemed to be having trouble breathing, but she still tried to listen to what I had to say.
おとといの綿流しのお祭り。お前は途中で帰ったから行かなかったんだよな。そして、俺は祭りに行って、みんなと遊んだ。
らしいですわね。あの時は取り乱して申し訳ありませんでしたわね。
Satoko remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little.
実は俺、祭りに行っていないって言ったら、信じるか？
Satoko looked at me, confused. She couldn't help it, of course.
信じられるわけありませんわ。何を今さら。
What is happening with this part, though? I don't know.
信じられないだろ。信じられないのは。だって、俺は祭りに行っていないのに、俺が祭りに現れて、みんなと遊んだって言うんだ。
Everyone, covering for Keiichi makes sense. But Satoko also covering for him when she's also having delusions doesn't make sense.
こんなの信じられるわけないだろ。
それ、本気ですの？
ああ、綿流しの夜から、おかしいんだ。いつの間にか、変な足音が、ペタペタとついてくるようになって。
The blood drained from Satoko's expression.
足音が、ペタペタ。
Sounds like something you might have heard about.
そうなんだ。最初は気のせいだと思ってたけど、ずっとついてくるんだ。多分、今もついてきてる。里子の足音と混じって、よく聞き分けられないけれど。
Satoko took a long, hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why wouldn't he, after telling him this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure the feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless.
綿流しの日、俺は祭りに行かず、あることをしていたんだ。ずっとだぞ。眠ったり、意識がなくなったりしたことはなかった。だから寝ぼけ気分でふらふらと、記憶になく祭りに出かけたなんてことはありえない。
それはおかしいですわね。なら、どうやってお祭りで遊んだんですの？
Good question.
だから、俺は祭りには行ってないんだよ。
No, I can't let myself get emotional. If I get agitated now, that'd be like proving that there's something wrong with my head.
あ、ごめん。みんなが信じてくれないんで、つい。
圭一さんがそう言うなら、信じてあげますわ。それで？
あの夜、高野さんに会ったんだ。それで、見下されたと思って、俺は心の中で念じたんだ。お前なんか死んじまえって。
高野さんって、どことなくそういう雰囲気がございますものね。その気持ち、わからなくもありませんでしたよ。
高野さんが死んだの、知ってる。昨日の話だ。どこかで焼け死んだらしい。
それ、本当ですの？死んだんですの？
俺が死ねと願うと、次の日には死んでるんだ。それから警察の大石ってやつも知ってるか？ムカつく太った刑事みたいなやつ。
Satoko nodded a little.
さっき警察が話してるのを聞いたんだが、どうもあいつ行方不明になってるらしい。
I actually don't know what this is about either. Missing, not even talking to his partner to tell him where he went. I don't know.
実は昨日、あいつにも死んじまえって念じてたんだ。
それ、本当の話ですの？
嘘じゃない。俺だって信じたくないけど、本当の話なんだ。高野さんも監督も大石も、俺が死ねと念じたら、本当に死んでしまったんだ。
And for a while, Satoko was at a loss. A long silence ensued.
それは怖い話ですわね。圭一さんに、せめて嫌われないように気をつけませんと。
それだけじゃない。もっと、おかしいこともあるんだ。それは、お前の、おじなんだ。
おじさまの話はやめてくださいましな。
昨日、いたんだろ。お前の家に。
あの人の話はやめてくださいます。嫌なんですの。
ありえないんだ。あいつがいるわけがないんだ。
やめてって言ってますのよ。いや、
Just mentioning him is making her have an episode.
あの男が綿流しの夜以降いるわけがないんだ。
Maybe it was a good. Maybe he should have killed him, but I don't know.
だって
But maybe not. I don't know. Tepe's scum, but
あの男のことはもう嫌なんですの。
俺が殺したんだ、この手で。
even the cicadas stopped crying. Her face was streaked with tears, and it stiffened even more as she looked at me in disbelief.
俺が綿流しの祭りの夜にお前の叔父を殺したんだ。だからお前の家に帰ってくるなんてことはありえないんだ。
But still, he went back. And last night, he found fault with the dinner you made him, yelled all sorts of things at you, and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. Okay, you should probably say that to her, and then see how she reacts about that. I don't know. I think she's just gonna go crazy, or not go crazy, but just be distraught by anything he's saying. That couldn't have possibly have happened.
だから俺はあの男を確かに殺したという証拠を確かめるために埋めた死体を昨日掘り返したんだ。だがそこには死体はなかった。こんなことがあり得ると思うか。確かに殺したのに死体がないんだ。そして何事もなかったかのように帰宅してお前の前にこんなことがあっていいはずないだろう。
Satoko's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away, like there was someone else in front of her, about to hurt her.
お前も俺のこと頭が変になったって思ってるんだろうな。無理もないさ。
Maybe a little bit.
俺だって信じられない。
圭一さんはきっと偶然呪った人が死んでしまったんで混乱してるだけに違いありませんわ。監督の自殺にショックを受けて気が動転してるだけなんですのよ。今日はもう学校を休んでお家で休んだ方がよろしいと思いますわ。私はもう平気ですから、どうかご自分の体を大事になさいまし。
Satoko spoke like she understood me, but she also told me to go home. I could see the revulsion in her face and knew that she didn't want to be around me
サトコ
anymore.
をちゃんと診療所まで見送ったら俺も帰る。サトコだってまだ足元がフラフラじゃないか。途中で倒れたら大変だぞ。
私はもう本当に大丈夫なんですのよ。男の人にいつまでもこんな姿を晒していたくないんですのよ。
The ragged breathing, I think, is a sign of mania, I think. Or she just could be been boiled for an entire night and just like freaking exhausted. She wobbled up the shrine steps, looking like she was about to fall. I immediately ran up to her and helped her stay on her feet. But then Satoko promptly jumped away from me. That outright rejection hurt a lot. Once she got up to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged, and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it was more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was really a feeling of rejection. And that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This was the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so saddening. Don't be naive, Keiichi Maibara. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Satoko would thank you. You did it so Satoko would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Rika-chan's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used by the town's council. If you went past it a little further through the shrine grounds, you apparently reached the back of the assembly hall. Satoko was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. And then I heard the vigorous sounds of wings flapping. I turned around and saw a crow. I hadn't seen many crows since coming to Hinamizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they'd flock to trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. And I was remembering that. I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box. And I thought how terrible it was for someone to leave a garbage bag in a place like this. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive a horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upward, fleeing into the sky. When the crows' big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. Correct. What had I seen there? The scream had escaped from my throat before I understood what I was looking at. What was this? Satoko came over as well, realizing something had happened. Don't come over here. And she looked over my shoulder. Then she screamed as well. This wasn't... The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Arg, enough of this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right, yes. Yes, it was Rika-chan. Our friend, Satoko's best friend. Always easygoing, clever as a cat, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend, Rika-chan, she was... Rika-chan was stark naked. She was face up, limbs sprawled. Her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky. And...
Rika!
Satoko broke down crying on the spot. And yet, she still couldn't approach her friend's remains. The crows had gotten through the garbage bag and dragged. Well, they dragged out the apple peel and spread it all over. No. Crows, they couldn't do this. Same. On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste became a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika-chan, her stomach was cut wide open, vertically, completely open.
Rika!
Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels were dragged out, like the children's toys left all over the floor. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone, somewhere, had killed Rika-chan, brought her here, laid her here with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut open her stomach and dragged out her intestines. Red and pink viscera were sticking out of her gut, and her intestines were scattered in every direction like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped around to that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints. And those footprints, there were several still on Rikazuk-chan's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano-san and Coach and Oishi to die, but I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika-chan's death.
そうさ、俺じゃない。
Oh,
俺じゃない。
don't say this.
俺じゃない。
I stumbled backwards, then stepped on a newspaper. A newspaper? In a place like this? The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I had kept it wrapped up on my belt in order to carry Satoko. And that newspaper had fallen off. Sheesh, don't scare me like that. I bent down to pick it up, and then Satoko looked at me with such disbelief as I'd never seen, and froze. She was looking straight at me. At the hatchet. On my belt.
落ち着け、サトコ。これは違うぞ。
Satoko, trembling madly, backed away.
俺じゃない。俺じゃないんだ。俺じゃ。
Higurashi!
Uh-oh. She didn't care at all that she was exposing herself through the towel. She just trembled and tried to step back from the demon in front of her.
サトコ、落ち着いてくれ。頼むから、冷静になってくれ。サト。
Screaming weakly, Satoko began to run, unsteadily. Run away, that is.
待ってくれ、サトコ。違うんだ。違うんだ。
The way she ran, it was so weak, so slow. So I wanted to go after her. I could have caught up. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up. But if I tried to grab Satoko's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try and clear this up.
高野さんを殺して、監督を殺して、大石さんも殺したんでございましょう。おじさまを殺そうとして、リカまで人殺し。
違う。俺じゃない。俺は殺してなんかいない。
何を言ってるんですの。あなたさっき自分で言ったじゃありませんの。死ねって、死んでしまえって。それでみんな死んでしまったんでしょ。
俺は死ねって思っただけで、別に。
自分で何をしたか記憶に残っていないんでございましょう。そんな人の話なんか信用できるわけありませんわ。人を殺した時の記憶が欠落してるだけなんじゃありませんの。いや、記憶がないふりをしてるだけなんじゃありませんの。第一、そのナタは何なんですのよ。
I was gonna kill your uncle. Again.
説明してごらんなさいな。
これは。
ほら圭一さんは殺人鬼じゃありませんの。どうしてですの。ちょっと意地悪だったけど楽しくて優しい、一度は本当のニーニーかもしれないとまで思ったのに、どうしてそんな風になってしまったんですの。
I might have been able to slowly answer each one of Satoko's question at a time, but in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even know if I was really innocent anyway. At the very least, I killed Satoko's uncle. There was no body, but I killed him. Without a doubt. At that point, I was far from innocent. And I wish for Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi were dead. And that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano-san to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you didn't like. And then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would. And hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So, even ignoring Takano-san's death, Coach's and Oishi's were completely premeditated crimes. Well, was I a killer, just like Satoko said? Was I unable to distinguish between reality and illusion, and turned into a demon without remembering it, becoming a killer who carried out Oyashiro-sama's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Ah, damn it. The very word impossible was impossible in Hinamizawa right now. How many freaking times have I said those words these past 3 days? Satoko had started crying again and was walking unsteadily. At first it felt like she was running, but now it was like she was walking away crying from someone bullying her.
どうしてこんなことになってしまったんですの？どうして
If there was an answer to that, then I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this?
ニーニーがいなくなってずっと寂しかったけど、圭一さんが転校してきてくれて、またみんな明るくなって、楽しくなって、毎日が光ってたのに。
Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful. And yet, after that, Satoko and I shouted this exact same thing.
どうしてこんなことに。
The cicadas were sneering at the spectacle, our strange game of tag. And shut up. Eventually, I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted, and a suspension bridge appeared. Satoko was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any time, at any moment. And when I stepped onto the bridge, it swayed a lot, causing Satoko to stagger and fall on the spot.
大丈夫かサトコ。
近寄らないで。この人殺し。
It's a little bit of mania at the end of there. Satoko shouted, her hatred made very clear. It was sad. If words could cut, then this warmth flowing through from my eyes would have been blood for sure.
どうしてこうなってしまったんですの？圭一さんのこと大好きだったのに。
I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Satoko would start shouting again and say things that hurt me deeply again. So I couldn't approach any closer than this.
サトコ、俺にもなんでこうなったかわからないんだ。でもこれだけは言える。リカちゃんを殺したのは俺じゃないんだ。それだけは絶対に。
いい加減なこと言わないでほしいですわ。自分の記憶にも自信が持てない人が何を言ったってどう信じればいいって言うんですの？
Good point. But I don't think he did it. I tightened my hands into fists. This was mortifying. I wasn't crazy. Hinamizawa was crazy ever since I wandered into it, lost on that one night. The insane world, where I was at the festival when I wasn't, and the uncle I killed was alive, where death would come just by me wishing for it. It was this world's fault. Mian and Rena started acting strangely, like they were possessed by something too, and Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say. And even Satoko, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing. At least I wanted to. So then, why? I hated it. Every time I asked why, the day Satoko and I enjoyed peace went so wrong.
サトコ、信じてくれ。俺は人殺しじゃない。
では、そのナタは何なんですの？
For murdering, but... Well, you got me
納
there.
得のいく説明はできまして。
このナタが怖いのか。じゃあ捨てるよ。それなら安心だろ。
Satoko didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with that proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt and then dropped it over the side of the bridge into the stream below.
捨てたぞ。これで話を聞いてくれるな。
武器を捨てたぐらいで気を許すと思いまして。圭一さんほどの方なら私を素手で絞め殺すなんて簡単でしょうに。
Like hell I would ever want to kill Satoko. You idiot.
じゃあどうしたらいい？両手を頭の上で組んだらいいか？
そうですわね。両手を頭の上で組んで後ろを向いてくださいます。
It was a cunning plan, much like the one she used during club activities. Putting my hands on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Satoko very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better.
これでいいか？俺の話を聞いてくれ。
Satoko stood up, then carefully approached me from behind. And then she actually came right up behind me. She was so close, and yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn around.
圭一さんが悪くないのはなんとなくうすうす分かっていましたわ。
え？
多分あなたは何か悪いものに乗り移られただけなんですの。さっきまでは圭一さんが殺人鬼なんだと思ってたけど、私分かりましたの。あなたの目を見ていたら。
I could hear that Satoko was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the same.
圭一さんが人殺しなんかするわけがない。圭一さんの体を何か悪いものが乗っ取って悪事に駆り立てただけ。
Oh, like Mion in chapter 2? Mion-shion? Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell.
思えばひょっとするとあの人たちも圭一さんと同じものに乗り移られていたのかもしれない。
They?
あの時は殺されるとしか思わなかったから、そこまでは考えが及ばなかったけど、今ならわかる。あれは乗り移った何か悪いものの仕業だった。
サトコ？何の話だ？
Her parents? It was less like she was talking to me, and more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing at my back.
わかってるんですの。私、身に覚えがないわけじゃないんですのよ。
Mm-hmm. Satoko's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart, but I didn't know what Satoko was talking about.
西宮殿の屋根によじ登ったことがありますの。何年も前のことですわ。
Once, when Satoko was playing hide and seek at the shrine grounds, she climbed onto the roof of the storehouse with ritual implements which everyone said not to go near, and hid. Then Satoko saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Satoko, the word curse was plenty scary, but she was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she'd been. Despite the darkness, she could see a few things down around her thanks to the faint light coming in from the air window. And to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside, and it was made not to open from within. She would have gone back out through the ventilation window she'd come in from. She would have to. But the window was high up on the wall, and there was no way she would be able to climb back up. Satoko desperately tried not to cry out, and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of bird cage-like looking things hanging by chains from the ceiling. She took the hanging chains and strung them along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of change, she might be able to manage to climb up the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, so she had to try. And try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed the bundle of chains. Satoko could hear the clinks and clangs of everything around creaking under her weight. And then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she used to stick the chains on the wall flew off, and the chains all began to pull loudly and furiously every which way. Spurred on by the sounds behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundles of chains, the other fixtures broke, and then one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceiling fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was an image of Oyashiro-sama, his vessel, and the cage took off one of the arms, then trapped some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she'd done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered around, and then of course Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine's priest, with an angry look ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key to the ritual storehouse was Rika. So he scolded her, saying that this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very angry and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back, took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something, and struck her with it several times. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," that pitiful voice, I still can't get it out of my head. I should have said it was me. I should have said so to save my best friend from that false accusation without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange.
わかってるんですの。私には。これは、お社様のたたりだって。あの時、最後伝を怪我して、親友を見捨てた私への天罰だって。
お社様のたたり。
父も母も、濁流に消えた。意地悪だったおばも死んだけど、誰よりも私を可愛がってくれたニーニーも、私を捨てて、家出してしまった。そして、圭一さんが転校してきて、やっと楽しい毎日が戻ってきたと思ったのに、今度は、圭一さんが取り憑かれて、リカも殺されて。聞いたの私。お社様は、本当にたたりをなすときは、本人をすぐに殺さないんだって。
I think the voice actress at this, like right here at this line, they covered her mouth, and that's why it sounded like that.
親しい人から順に殺して、みんな殺してから、最後に殺すんだって。だから、圭一さんもたたりにやられて。きっと、今度はレナさんやミオンさんがたたられてしまうんですわ。そして、殺したり、殺されたり。もういや。
I think this is supposed to be false leads for how the curse works, but I don't think it works like this.
落ち着けよ、サトコ。たたりなんかない。誰もお前をいじめたりなんかしないって。
When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Given my hands were awkwardly placed on my head, I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. And I'd been pushed not into the bridge, but to the side. Towards the stream. No, this can't be happening. Wow. At one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. We were pretty high up, and below were rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body weight. My frail little grip My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go.
Satoko! Satoko!
I didn't understand myself, what I meant by shouting her name then. Was I asking her to save me? Or was I asking her why did she do this? Finally, everything came back into focus and I saw Satoko. And I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. She gonna look crazy? It was the first time I'd seen it. It was an expression of righteous anger, meant only for those who needed to die. As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was gonna fall anyway.
私はお前なんかには負けないんですのよ。タタリなんかに負けてたまるもんですか。お前になんか絶対に負けない。みんなを奪ったお前に絶対に負けたりなんかしない。
サトコ、これだけは聞いてくれ。
I didn't know what my face looked like at the time, but it seemed like it was enough to quell Satoko's agitation.
俺のしたことは確かに褒められるものじゃない。いや、いけないことだったかもしれない。だけど、お前に幸せになってほしくってしたことだったんだ。それだけは信じてくれ。
こいつ最後の最後でケイチさんのふりを。
Satoko didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say, and for that to happen at the very end like this was tragic.
お前に褒められたくてやったわけじゃなかった。お前に幸せになってさえもらえればよかった。俺たちはダメなんだ。お前が笑っていないとダメなんだ。だから俺が消えたら俺が死ぬことで新しい生活を迎えたならきっと笑ってくれ。
Making sure?
それだけ約束してくれないか。
喋るな。ケイチさんの口調で喋るな。落ちろ。落ちてしまえ。
And those were the last words Satoko ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Satoko happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? And what was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one, or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all of this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy. This world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world where I never doubted all the crazy times we had as a club would go on forever. It couldn't possibly have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended like this, with Satoko pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world and disappear. No, I'd probably already disappeared. Yes, probably. On the night of Watanagashi. I'm sure that in the world I really belonged to, I had vanished that night, and everyone was worried. It was laughable that I had taken this long to figure out I wasn't around anymore. Oyashiro-sama's curse on the 5th year, and was Satoko's uncle dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Satoko had already been freed. Maybe my friends were all lamenting my disappearance and valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people, the club would reopen, and they would have a good time without me, waiting for the day when I would come back. I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home, but this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Satoko's smile as my duty as her Nini. At this point, there will be nobody left to torture you. Because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it one more time. My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of a moment. And now I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'd still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa, so that nobody would ever again have to find themselves lost here again. We're still going. Tips, research notes. Oyashiro-sama. Nobody really knows what characters to use to write Oyashiro-sama. Knowing this is hard, partly because depending on the time period, he has to have been called with various titles, with subtle changes to his name, and nobody knows the real one. The only thing all time periods agree on is that the 4 syllables Oyashiro were always used. There is a theory stating the shrine Yashiro, dedicated to Oyashiro-sama itself, became an object of worship, and that people began calling it Oyashiro-sama, or Lord Honorable Shrine, but this doesn't make a bit of sense, especially to me who doesn't know Japanese. I don't understand the wordplay going on here. Apparently they're worshipping the shrine? Okay. I don't know whether this is related, but people say the Furude family, the most respected bloodline in terms of worshipping Oyashiro-sama, actually inherited his blood. And in the legend the Furude family passes down, if for 8 generations in a row the firstborn child is a girl, the 8th daughter will be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. What? Why is this a legend? Okay. If we go by this legend, the characters used for Oyashiro-sama's curse name should be O for honorable, Ya for 8, Shiro for generation. These character assignments are simply something I've thought up. There is no way to verify it. If this is true, then Oyashiro-sama would have been named as such under the assumption he would come again. The second coming of an object of worship can be seen in several religions, so this isn't unusual. But a few of these religions call the second coming of their object of worship a day of judgment, or something along those lines, and we must not forget they mean it to be the very end of the world. The end of the world is very popular in the end of the century. Not so much anymore. Rika Furude, pampered and loved dearly by the elderly folk in the village. The rumors say she is the 8th generation, an Oyashiro-sama. I do not know the family tree of the Furudes, but at the very least I can confirm that for the past 2 generations the first child has been a girl. Rika Furude watches over Hinamizawa. If the village were ever to lose her protection, what would happen? Would peace between man and demon be lost? Would it once again create a hellish landscape where man-eating demons run rampant? Probably. A gruesome feast of the demons, who suddenly remembered how delicious the weak humans were, who would only cry, scream, and run for their lives. What would that look like? Just imagining it is enough to make my heart pound with excitement. Calm down. So I guess this is hinting Takano is responsible for Rika's death, probably. Are we really still going? I can't believe we're still going. I'm just going to save. What's going to go on? I don't even know if I should continue. Is it really going to... Maybe I'll continue. I can't believe there's a 13 part to this. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was laying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue, or red, or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken upside-down seat car, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die, and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like it was maybe 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel like that at all. So short a time had gone by. Whatever. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade.
いってて。
The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought back memories one after another, memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satoko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. And she would put on some clothes, get to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me, or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after all that. Whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream, and then through an animal-like path in the woods. Animal trail-like path. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind, and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I had been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. You smell sulfur? And then, at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in the chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I never experienced this kind of quiet before. Even the only sounds coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow, and many leaves were spread on the ground, despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was the June Hinamizawa I knew. And yet it seemed like the seasons had all switched all of a sudden. Looking at the falling leaves and rotting weeds led me to a spot with a few insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them all about. This is like Chernobyl when the birds start flying out of the air, I think. This stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs. Combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody, despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trucks. Huh? In raincoats. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat and with such a stench about it. It's a stench about. They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it up on the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy, too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at the riverside fish market. Several dozens, hundreds of tunas were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there, watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out, and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they may be yelling at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. Nah, they're like, there's a witness still alive here. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell that they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same bird egg smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces, like the army? Why was the army in the schoolyard?
おい君、どこから入ってきた?
Suddenly, someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around, and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. He's wearing a hazmat suit? Green raincoat is what he's calling it.
どこから入ってきた?
When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised.
君はひなみ様の住民か? 住所と名前は言えるか?
一応、ここに住んでますけど、名前は前原圭一です。あ、住所は獅子骨市ひなみ沢村。
After seeing me tell my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started talking into the radio.
本部、応答願います。本部、応答願います。402生存者発見。繰り返す。402生存者発見。場所は営林署入り口前。
本部了解。生存者は至急保護されたし、生存者の容体は？
生存者は健在。全身に外傷を認められるも生命に支障なし。自立歩行可能。これより保護し本部へ送致します。
I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF, I couldn't help but think it seemed a bit much. They urged me into the back of the Jeep, and then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot, and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through those lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like a giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask,
すみません。
"What's going on?"
何かあったんですか？
君はどこにいたんだ？何をしていたんだ？
Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you.
ずっと山に入ったところにある吊り橋から落っこちて、河原で多分気絶してました。今日が何曜日かもよくわからないです。
今日は昭和58年の6月22日、水曜日だ。
That surprised me. Satoko pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been sleeping on that riverbed for an entire day.
改めて聞きますけど、何があったんですか？なんで自衛隊が来てるんです？何かの訓練ですか？
Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his radio turned on the vehicles. Why is this all the way up here? He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of the radio announcer I was familiar with.
より首相官邸で行われました。記者団からの自衛隊の災害出動が迅速に行われなかったことが前例のない未曾有の大災害に直結したのではないかとの質問に対し、奥野官房長官は次のようにコメントしました。
でありまして、県知事からの派遣要請を受けて迅速に対応したものと思っております。
と、このように述べ、要請を受けてからの自衛隊の出動は迅速であった。むしろ県側の事態把握に遅れがあった可能性を示唆しました。そもそも自衛隊の派遣を要請した県知事は、災害発生から前例のない大災害であることをいつ認識できたのか、そして災害派遣要請までにいわゆるお役所的なロスタイムが生じ、被害の拡大を招いたのではないか、今後の究明が待たれています。首相官邸より報道部の尾形記者がお送りしました。さて、ここでもう一度災害発生からの行政の対応を振り返ります。
In the middle of the night, between June 21st and 22nd, our large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of a volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. Is this real or is this a cover? I don't remember. I think this can't be real. The gas was I don't know. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along the small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. When? 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would have contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The newspaper guy got caught. The news dealer's shop had made repeated calls, but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well.
非常に悔やまれています。この時点で警察か消防への連絡があったなら、事態はもっと改善されていた可能性が高いでしょう。少なくとも村全滅という惨劇は免れた可能性があります。
I doubt that. 6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30. Contact was lost with the patrol car on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the general, the countermeasures came too late.
近年、市民団体によって指摘されていますが、議員待遇者との視察旅行は完全に親睦を目的にしたもので、主演三昧だと噂されています。近い筋の話では、知事は徹夜で飲んだくれて、泥酔状態で就寝していたそうです。環境部長から電話があった時も泥酔していて、全く取り合ってもらえなかったのだそうです。
And so the authorities, in the hour or so it took for the governor to grasp the situation and sober up, did nothing but accumulate information.
知事は言うに及びませんが、知事不在時には本部長を務めることになる環境部長にも怠慢の責任が問われるでしょう。また、県としても大災害を想定したマニュアルが用意されておらず、対応が常に後手に回ってしまったのが致命的でした。
9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak.
とにかく深夜の就寝中というのが不運でした。同じ災害でも日中に起こっていれば全く違ったでしょう。
All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but the results are predicted to only increase that number.
スタジオにはゲストとして火山性の災害にお詳しい地学博士の藤原先生にお越しいただいております。先生、このような恐ろしい6月が突然湧き出すようなことはあるのでしょうか。
火口部に限定して申し上げれば決して珍しいことではありません。火山大国日本にはたくさんの活火山がありますが、それらの火口部はいずれも危険なガスの噴出する危険性があり、一般登山者も火口部周辺には立ち入らないのが一般的です。
では今回、日並沢村を襲った卵のフラン臭のするガスというのも火口部では一般的なガスということですか？
卵のフラン臭という特徴から、おそらく火山ガスの中でも事故例の多い硫化水素によるものだと考えられます。高い濃度であれば非常に危険なものです。
日並沢村は火山の火口部とは全く縁遠い場所にあるわけですが、そういった火口部でない場所にもその硫化水素が発生することがあるのでしょうか？
詳しいことが分かっていないので、まだはっきりとしたことは申し上げられませんが、外国の例で温泉の地下のマグマだまりからガスが噴出したという記録があります。極めて希少な例ですが、必ずしも火口部でなくても発生の可能性はあるということです。
先生、ありがとうございました。今、防衛庁から発表があった模様です。防衛庁の森川さん。
はい、防衛庁です。先ほど防衛庁は日並沢村ガス災害の主原因となった火山性ガスについて、陸上自衛隊科学学校での分析の結果、二酸化炭素と硫化水素の混合ガスによるものだったと発表しました。
森川さん、そのガスは依然として噴出を続け、周囲に拡大しているのでしょうか？
現在、日並沢村で救助活動に入っている自衛隊第9師団の報告として、ガスの濃度は徐々に薄まりつつある。これですが、依然日並沢村地区は危険な状態にあることには変わりなく、今後も注意深く監視を続ける必要があるようです。
防衛庁から報道部の森川記者がお伝えしました。続きまして、避難を余儀なくされている沖宮地区住民の模様をリポートします。現在避難所の一つとなっている下篠崎小学校に報道部の現地記者がお伝えいたします。
何ですかそれ。
Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night? Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I'd heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many dead and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually, we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher.
もう大丈夫だよ。
You'd go to this hospital?
具合は歩けるかい？
歩けます。あ、痛い。
And because of how many owls, they forced me to lay in a stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio.
外傷多数。骨折もしくは内臓損傷の可能性大。頭部に大きな裂傷。瞳孔正常。眼底に出血なくも脳内損傷の可能性は否定できず。
And then, from the clinic entrance, people were lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. 2 troops, holding shoulders and legs, like some kind of baggage, picked them up and threw them into the trunk. I think this was happening in China during coronavirus. In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and that told me they were already nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses. Corpses, corpses, corpses. Corpses, corpses. Corpses, 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 corpses.
バカ！犠牲者を粗末に扱うな！彼は村の住民だぞ。
The troops carrying the sacks answered with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. Again, it was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night, it's still going on. Please, please end it already. It's sad.
おい、意識が損失したぞ。患者の名前を呼びかけろ。早く。
前原くん、聞こえるかい？聞こえるなら瞬きでいいからしてくれ。前原くん、前原くん、前原くん。
Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their
呼
cries.
吸が停止したぞ。気道確保。人工呼吸。絶対に生かせ。畜生、畜生。
This doctor is obviously not part of This is a good doctor.
もうこれ以上死者はごめんだぞ。死んでもいい命なんかないんだ。殺すな、殺すな。
I could hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Well, I don't know about that. They were so commonplace, they soaked into my heart too. What? I missed it. Oh, those words came from his heart. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Satoko. If this place was the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oyashiro-sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satoko said something. Oyashiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first, but kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end, that it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once. And now I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. Their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone, some prefecture. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide erupted from Onigafuchi Swamp, one of Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims. Damn! 20 had gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. Jesus. But there was a... I mean, this is a high number, but I thought there would be more in Hinamizawa. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Onigafuchi Swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming this disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There were apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remain part of these legends. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of a string of freak death incidents that had been happening in recent years in Hinamizawa village, stirring interest in theories about this curse of Oyashiro-sama. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even died of unknown causes, further encouraging such extreme opinions. And on top of that, several villages' relatives professing to be possessed by Oyashiro-sama's curse committed suicides in strange ways. And the impact the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. Like scratching out your throat. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night, killing people, spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headaches, dizziness, etc. Some who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed by the tabloid press. But afterwards, some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculations, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The whole prohibition was, at one point, undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the village being cordoned off again. Again, the second time. The word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of its former life intact and left to rot. Only one survivor remains, Keiichi Maibara, aged... Oh, we don't know he's 15 or something. Okay, could be anything. Who lived at, Hinamizawa village. At the time of the rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press have been asking him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? I guess they're not going to mention Rika. Today he remained silent, unwilling to speak of it. (1984) Oh, that was too fast. No! Committed suicide, yes. Strangled to death. Body found burnt. Oishi went missing. Oh, they never found his body. Kumatani. Irie, right? Furude murdered. Oh, they did find him. Find her. Uh-huh. Reina. Everyone died. Went missing. Satoko went missing. Teppei went missing. Okay. Shion Sonozaki committed suicide at the victim's hospital on... So, because I guess you'd be in Okonomiya. Attempted suicide at the victim's hospital. Diagnosed with severe... Refused all media. That's Why are we getting credits this time? I don't remember credits last time. Partners in crime, Yatazakura. BT! Beatrice, right here. Circle log installer. Perhaps by this chapter he had more, he could do more with his story. Minigames BT. There were minigames? Or there will be? This is a choice to use this song after everyone died. This chapter really wasn't about relationships, was it? It was more like about finding more clues for you to figure out what's happening. 2003. So this is, I think that's when the, I think that's when this story was actually written. I could be wrong. I'm definitely wrong. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago in 2003. Keiichi would be, let's see, if he was 15, then he'd be 35 at this point. Their son went missing with his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. So who's this? Who's 1-2 decades older than him? 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds and came across the cassette tape in question. When did he die? 1995? Oh, he was missing. Okay. So from 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experience working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. Oh, is this about Tomitake? Huh. The label on the tape read 11/28/1983, Keiichi Maibara. It is thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiichi Maibara, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. This after a suicide attempt. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public space. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. What happened to Keiichi in the end?
なんだか録音されてると思うと、すごく喋りにくいですね。
気にしない気にしない。ほら、こうすれば録音してるのも気にならないでしょ。
After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something? Oh yeah, I'm not going to record. What a dick.
まず最初の質問から。圭一君はあの大災害の夜どこにいたのかな？
神社から裏に抜けて、ずっと林道を進んで。
They never found Satoko.
吊り橋があるんですよ。山に入る少し前に。そこから落ちて気を失ってました。
それは大災害の夜、つまり21日から22日にかけての深夜のこと？
I wonder if Keiichi figures that she died too.
いいえ、21日の火曜日の朝です。それで、次の日の昼間に目を覚ましたわけですから。
どうしてそんなところに？誰もが持つ疑問だけど、当日は平日で、しかも落ちた橋は君の家と学校からは大きく離れているよね。ざっくばらんに言って、君が大災害の発生を事前に知っていて。
Why would you say this to a victim? Why would you say this?
村から逃げる途中に吊り橋から落ちたんじゃないかっていう声もあるんだけど。
冗談じゃないです。勝手なことを言わないでください。
私も随分ひどい言い分だと思うよ。
Yeah, why would you say it, you dick? This is like 6 months after it happened.
気を悪くしないでね。
I'm gonna punch you in the face.
さて、次に圭一君が落ちたという吊り橋なんだけど、地図で言うとここだよね。神社の裏から林道を抜けて至る吊り橋というのは。
多分、俺もあんまり行かないところなので、自信はないですが。
そんなに行かないところに、どうして平日の朝に行ったのか、疑問は尽きないけどな。それで、この君が気絶していたという河原なんだけど、実はそれはありえないという噂は知っているかい？
Why?
ありえない。また、ありえないですか。まだ。
Oh, is he gonna display signs of mania? For a little while, Keiichi Maibara mutters the word impossible several times.
どうしてありえないと？
火山ガスが発生したのは鬼ヶ淵という沼なのは知ってるよね。それで学者の先生が緻密な模型を使ってシミュレーションをしたら興味深いことが分かったんだってさ。例の火山ガスってのは空気よりも重いらしくて、地形に沿って低いところへ流れ込む水みたいな性質があるんだってさ。
Oh, true. Keiichi would have been screwed over because he was even lower than, yeah.
それで発生源の鬼ヶ淵沼からそういうガスが噴出し、どれくらいの時間をかけて村を覆うのか実験がされたんだ。そしたらさ、君が気絶していたという河原、流れ込むんだよ、ガスが。
よく言ってる意味がわからないんですが。
つまり、君が本当にこの河原で気絶していたなら、君は丸一晩、猛毒の火山ガスの中にいたことになるんだよ。
I'm gonna put this down to luck right now.
だからつまり、君がここで気絶をしていた可能性は否定されたわけさ。もっとざっくばらんに言うよ。私はね、君が嘘をついているんじゃないかなって思うんだ。君は大災害の時、安全なところに身を潜めていて、ガスが薄れた頃合いを見計らって、村に現れて自衛隊の人に保護された。どうかな？図星かな？
For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi Maibara further in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs.
別に。仮にそうだったとしても、俺は今更驚きませんけどね。
Oh, is he like, maybe that did happen? Maybe it was another version of me that did that?
驚かないとはどういう意味だい？
あんたもさっき言いましたよね。ありえないって。
He's having his,
あのひなみ沢では、ありえないことなんて、いくらでも起こるんです。死んだはずの人が生きてる。そんなこと、珍しいことじゃないんですよ。まさか、俺自身が、死んだはずなのに生きているってやつを、立証しようとはね。
stab him. The journalist and Keiichi Maibara both laugh for a while. To verify its
じゃあ、
authenticity,
圭一君、話を変えるよ。
I had the others in the Maibara family check the tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually his voice. We don't need this. Alright, then I'll change the subject. Oh, he said that.
あの大災害が、ひなみ沢連続開始事件の5年目のたたりではないかという話についてはどう思う？
いや、それはないですね。5年目のたたりは俺ですから。
え？ はははは。何のこと？
何のことって、あんたの話に対する答えですよ。あの大災害は、まあ、言っても信じないでしょうけど、俺が起こしたんです。俺がね、こんな村、丸ごと死んじまえって願ったから起こったんです。
Why doubt that? Why doubt this part?
そりゃ、豪快な話だね。
豪快？そういう面白い言い方もあるんですね。高野さんも俺が殺したし、監督も大石も俺が殺した。
Why would they allow a reporter into him to talk to him if he's dealing with this?
あの時の俺にはね、何か神がかり的な力が宿ってたんですよ。
Ah, it's possible the reporter snuck in.
そう。例えるなら、足音かな。
足音？って、なんだいそれ。
あんた、足音を聞いたこともないんですか？ペタペタ、ひたひた。あんたも今日からは歩いてるとき、不意に立ち止まってみると面白いですよ。それでね、自分がちゃんと立ち止まったにもかかわらず、足音が一つ余計に聞こえたなら、気をつけた方がいいですよ。
そうだね。気をつけるようにするよ。
そんなに俺、面白いこと話してますか？あんた、さっきからヘラヘラと笑ってばかりですね。監督と同じだ。俺のことを同情したり、話を聞いたりしてるふりをしながら、その実、人のことを異常者扱いしてる目だ。
It's getting mad.
そんなことはないよ。
いや、俺にはわかるんです。あんたの目は監督と同じだ。あの日以来、もう足音は聞こえない。だから俺にはもう、あんな恐ろしい力は残ってないだろうけど、今ここでもう一度、あんたの死を願ってみるよ。俺に不愉快な話ばかりをする。あんたの死を。そうだな。今回は一つ、死に方も決めてみようかな。高野さんは焼け死にだったから。じゃああんたは逆に水だ。
This is badass power.
水に溺れて死ぬってのはどうだい？絶好調だった当時の俺なら、次の朝までには必ず死んでる。さてあんたは、何日後に水で死ぬかな？あんたも気をつけろよ。俺ごときにたたり殺されるな。
Oh, it just got off. That was cool. The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi Maibara's laughter. And Keiichi Maibara, late on the night of 11/30, 1983, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps.
また一つ余計に。
Freaking out at the end. Why is it like one quotation? What is going on here? Okay, whatever. Boom. I really like. I really don't want to. I'm not a big fan of this part. Should I do it? I guess I'll do it, but I'm not really a big fan of these parts. So this was a cool chapter, Tatarigoroshi. I feel like a lot of it could stand to have been. Well, I don't know, because Ryukishi was writing from his life experience, so maybe I shouldn't have. But a lot of it was just dealing with child abuse and dragging that on kind of long, I feel like. And we only got to see Satoko and Keiichi's relationship for a little bit in the first two parts. And so I don't know. This is not my favorite part, but is it horrible? No, it's not horrible. It's okay. I'd rate, I don't know. Few tips. Some of the tips I kind of want to see again, but hold on, let's do this. I'm not a big fan of this. Like, you have this cool mystery, cool horror.
この度も日暮の泣く頃に水たたり殺しを最後までお楽しみいただき誠にありがとうございました。
You ruined it with this. I think, okay, you can get some cool, like, some cool tips, some cool theories out there, throwing it, trying to see, throwing out to the reader. But then, like, you kill all the tension that you just built, all the atmosphere you had with this. Like, oh, were you feeling sad? Were you feeling scared? Here you go. Let's just be happy.
これまでのシナリオとは少し違う雰囲気でお送りしましたが、いかがだったでしょうか？
Yeah.
お楽しみいただけたなら幸いです。
It was alright.
今回も胸のすくようなバッドエンドだったわね。
Those are the ones we remember the most.
私個人としては大災害が実際に起こった時の惨劇の描写も欲しかったところだけど、みんなの感想も同じかしら？
Maybe.
そんなわけありませんでしたよ。またしても大バッドエンドあれれ、バッドエンドって割にはみーちゃんは楽しそうだね。
っていうか、もう笑うしかないってのが本音でしょうね。
I'm so mad, all I can do is laugh.
なははは。毎回嫌な割り方がエスカレートすると思ったら、とうとうここまで行き着いちゃったわけですからね。
みんな仲良しで死んじゃったのですよ。
That's one way to look at it.
仲良しなのです。ニパ
そういう見方もあるのかな。毎回死んでる僕はもうごめんだな。
Oh, that's a good clue.
たまには死なずにエンドを迎えたいね。
富武さんって時報みたいな役割なんですよね。富武さんが死んだら、あ、後半戦突入だみたいな。
さて、ではここで今回の会合に改めてご参加いただく皆さんです。拍手でお迎えください。まずは監督こと入江京介さん。
Oh yeah, I'm trying not to remember that guy.
ご紹介に預かりまして光栄です。どうもどうも。脇役だったわけですが、トータルで見てみるとかなり美味しい役だったなぁなんて思ってます。
本当ですわね。脇役にしては出番もセリフも多すぎで、しかもキャラが強すぎましたよ。
今後どれだけ出番があるかは分かりませんが、その説は応援よろしくお願いしますね。
ありがとうございました。では次に我らが担任、知恵留美子先
生。Is this a new character? I don't think it is.
皆さんどうもこんにちは。
Maybe she is. I don't remember.
いろいろと登場シーンもあったのですが、今回カレー勝負で目立つシーンをいただきまして、カレーをバカにする人は許せません。ええ。
バカになんてしていませんよ。あ、千恵先生に席を空けてあげてください。
さて、これでとりあえず全員揃ったね。レナ、また乾杯をよろしくね。
では皆さん、各卓のコップをお持ちになってください。お飲み物はいろいろありますよ。
本当にお疲れ様会も賑やかになりましたね。今何人ぐらいいるんです？
私たちを加えて多分10人くらいはいると思います。
未成年人と成年人の人数比がこれでやっと互角かな。これで胸を張ってアルコールが飲めるね。
ビールってなんで冷えてるとあんなに美味しいのに、ぬるくなるとあんなにまずくなるのかしら。七不思議の一つよね。
なんででしょうね。
さあビールを継ぎますよ。12345あれ、大人は6人でしたっけ？
みー、僕も泡麦茶がいいのです。リカちゃんもお酒はダ
ではレナさん、そろそろお願いします。はい
はい、皆さんご清聴ですわよ。では皆さん、日暮らしの泣く頃に水、たたり殺し、乾杯。
せーの、
乾杯。
さて、
Oh my god.
では毎回恒例の今回のシナリオ議論でもやってみますかね。
It's the only reason I'm here.
とは言ったものの、今回のシナリオも煙に巻かれっぱなし。意見のある方は挙手をお願いしますね。
お、みんな慎重。挙手ないね。
じゃあ私が先陣を切ろうかしら。申し訳ないんだけど、音楽を変えてもらってもいいかしら。もう少しミステリアスな感じの。ああ、これがいいわね。
ムードが出まくりなのです。では高野さん、お願いします。
多分ね、たたり殺しのシナリオだけを吟味しても謎は解けないんじゃないかと思うの。
そりゃ同感だね。ここまで物語が重なれば、そういう仕掛けがあることは明白だしね。
そんな仕掛けありましたかしら。
A lot of things, actually.
これが正しい例かはわからないけど、鬼隠しで前原くんが大石さんとレストランで食事をして、それが園崎さんに知られていて不思議だったってくだりがありますよね。鬼隠しだけだと実に不思議な出来事ですけど、綿流しを読めば別に不思議でも何でもないことがわかります。
劇中の私が入ったレストランは園崎系列の店だったということですね。
This was not a mystery.
園崎一族はこの辺りの飲食店やら何やらを経営しているわけですから。
で、ケイちゃんの顔を知る者があの店にいて、それを私に伝えたと考えれば比較的筋は通るでしょ。そういうことだね。
日暮の物語は微細に異なる場所もありますけど、大筋の設定においては多分4つのシナリオは共通していると思います。
Oh, we're setting down rules here?
例えばキャラクター設定。
鬼隠しのレナは怖い人だけど、それは鬼隠しだけの設定ということじゃなくて、レナはレナで4つのシナリオに全く変わらない設定で出演しているということですね。
全く変わらない設定というのは同感。僕がどのシナリオでも常に同じ場所で同じ死に方をするのはその最たるものだね。
どんな物語になっても必ず同じ日に死にますですよ。
綿流し編でお祭りの最中に 高野さんと富武さんが西宮殿に忍び込むというシーンがありますけど、
Yeah, I don't really like these after these stories where they break the tension and then they kind of like just kind of spell it out for you. Yeah.
あのシーンも他のシナリオでは描かれなかっただけで起こったことになってるのかもしれませんね。
This part, sure. Tell the readers that maybe.
なっているそうです。綿流し当日のお天気や部活の内容、里子のおじさんの帰宅など、いくつかのイベントを除けばほとんどが共通するそうです。
だとすると、新しい疑問がいくつか湧きますね。全く同じ環境で語られる物語なのに、なぜああも違う物語に派生するのか。
一般的なサスペンスアドベンチャーの視点で考えると、物語が派生する分岐点が存在したってことになりますね。
綿流しで言うと、お姉に人形を渡した、あるいは渡さなかったというあたり？あんな序盤の選択肢1個でバッド確定とは恐ろしい選択肢だね。
では、たたり殺しに話を戻しますと、この場合ですと、おじを殺そうと決意するあたりですかしら。
私はずっとそれ以前、
Yeah, because Tepe doesn't show up in the other chapters.
同居人の女性がトラブルで失踪して、おじがひなみ沢に帰ってくることになったあたりから、もう分岐しちゃってると思うわね。
The very beginning.
では、一番最初の鬼隠しの分岐はどこなのですか？
やはり劇中の私が登場してお社様のたたりに関する連続開始事件のことを話すあたりからだと思いますね。
今思ったんですけれど、ちゃんと圭一さんがミオンさんの気持ちを理解して、それで大石さんも私のおじさんも現れなかったら、何も起こらずに平和に過ごせるってことなんじゃありませんの？
へえ、里子にしちゃ本質ズバリじゃないのよ。確かに言えて
る。じゃあこの暗い物語は大石さんとおじさんが現れないことを祈りつつ、園崎さんのご機嫌を損ねないようにすればみんな幸せになれるということなのかしら。
イエーイ、おねえバッドエンド要員。みんな気をつけてね。おねえの機嫌を損ねるとバッドエンド確定ですよ。何よそれ。シオン、あんたには次は容赦なく痛い目見させてやるからね。泣いた謝ったって許してやるもんか。待てこ
らこれまでの物語の謎は全然解けないけど、どうやったらこの物語が大団円で終わるかのグッドエンドの推理はできちゃいましたね。
本当にそれで幸せになれるんでしょうか。大石さんと北条哲平さんの不登場、ミオンさんのお人形の件、本当にそれさえ気をつければいいんですかね。
そうそう、みんなは一つ大きな最後を忘れてるよ。ひなみ沢大災害という天災を忘れたかい？
天災は防ぎようがないですわよ。村のみんなにガスマスクを配って引っ越しでもしますの？あれはきっとお社様のたたりなのです。だからお社様を怒らせないようにしなければならないのですよ。
なははは、ややこしい話になってきましたね。つまりお社様も怒らせてはダメと。お社様を怒らせないためにはどうすればいいのでしたっけ？
ダムの計画そのものがきっとダメなんでしょうね。ダム計画がそもそもなければよかったんじゃないでしょうか。
それは難しいわよね。だとしたらお怒りになったお社様を鎮める儀式が必要ね。
鬼ヶ淵の沼に捧げ物を沈めるあの儀式ですね。
捧げ物って何をお社様に捧げるって言うんですか？
Kochirie.
そりゃあ決まってるでしょう。どんな分岐にも関係なく話の流れから脱落が確定している人だよ。どうせ死ぬならひなみ沢のための人柱になってもらわなくちゃね。
その脱落が確定している人ってやっぱり僕のことかな。
やっぱり二郎さんはこの物語に欠かせない重要な役割の人だと信じてたわ。お役目を立派に果たしてちょうだいね。
これで今度こそグッドエンドの大団円シナリオの青写真ができましたね。せっかくだからちょっとやってみましょうか。役者は全員揃ってることですしね。
First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover ran out on him from returning to Hinamizawa. Well, I mean, the lover got killed by the Sonozakis probably because Hojo did something to screw them over, so it's his own fault.
いやー、私が北条おじですよ。はいはーい。行き場をなくしてロンリーブルー。早くひなみ沢に帰ってさとこちゃんをお持ち帰りしてじっくり教育。未来はご奉仕メイドですよ。
The less I see of this guy, the better. I just don't want to be dealing with this guy no more.
で
Holy
は
Christ.
ひなみ沢にバイクで帰りますか。キーを入れてカチッとカチッ。
成敗。怪人に規制でございますわよ。
さとこちゃん、火薬の量多すぎじゃないかな。
Nah. Next, we stop Oishi from showing up.
今度は私ですか。私の名前はクラウド大石。
Oh, there is no N in there. Kuraudo. Okay.
ジャジーでブルースな感じがだいぶイケてるナイスミドルですよ。
成敗なのです。
そして忘れちゃいけないのがお姉へのアフターフォロー。ささお姉、可愛らしいお人形さんですよ。よかったでちゅね。なんだか納得いかない。
で、最後にお社様の怒りを鎮めなくちゃならないと。
では最後のお役目よろしくね。
踏んじばってすまきにして吊るして3日かけて沈めるんでしたっけ。
面倒くさいですからここは一気にいっちゃいましょう。
ガボガボガボガボガボ。
これにて一件落着。
突然レナの腕が光ってうなって大変なことに。
G Gundam?
獅子類類で大変なことになってますのです。あれ、電話だ。もしもし。あ、ケイチくん、お疲れ様です。
おうおう、相変わらず大盛り上がりみたいじゃねえか。こっちは次回の台本読みで相変わらず忙しいってのに。まあいいや、今日の俺は機嫌がいいから嫌味はなしにしてやるぜ。シオンはいるか。もう行っちまってもいいんじゃないか。あれ
今ここで発表しちゃうんですか。とはいえもうすでに分かってる人たちもいるでしょうけど、まあいいか。
シオンさんとケイチさんの二人っきりの秘密ですって。
Mm-hmm.
何よそれ。聞いてない聞いてない聞いてない。
Okay, Kei-chan. Let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
まあつまりはそういうことです。初登場以来ダントツの人気ナンバーワン。姉妹キャラでも遅れ登場した片割れの方が絶対に人気が出るってのはギャルゲー全盛時代から決められたお約束ですし。
わけわかんねえことはどうでもいいよ。とにかく俺はそのシナリオでは主人公のお役ごめん。風の噂じゃ俺のボイス数を超えてるとか。てっへん、俺の苦労を少しは思い知れ。
まあケイちゃんのボイス数は異常ですから、他のシナリオに入れるようになればすぐに逆転されるでしょうけど。
It's like 200 kilobytes.
まあ園崎姉妹の実力ってやつをとくと皆さんにお見せして差し上げますよ。
でもいいんですの、シオンさん。主人公は毎回ろくでもない最後を迎えると決まってましたよ。
まあこれまではね。でもね、次回からは必ずしもそうはならないんですよね。
日暮の泣く頃に水も今回のたたり殺しと外伝の染め写しで一区切り。ミステリアスな謎を次々と提示してきた出題編はここで折り返しになり、次の章からはこれまでの謎に挑み、そしてさらなるドラマの幕開けとなります。
つまり私が名探偵になって理不尽な謎をバスバス解決していく痛快ストーリーなわけです。今のうちから決め台詞を考えておかないとね。みたいな。納得いかない、納得いかない。御三家の秘密に近づきすぎて閉じ込められていたぶられて悲惨な最後を遂げる役に決まってる。お姉こそ私に全ての謎と秘密をカンパされて謝罪の言葉を口にしながら自害なされる心の準備は OK です。
お社様のたたりの可能性はなしなのですか？
さて、そのしーちゃんが主役の目明かしに進むためには新しい警察資料が必要です。
はじめからを選んでゲームを開始すると主人公にシオンが追加されているので、それを選んで進めてください。
鬼隠し、綿流し、そしてたたり殺し。この3つのシナリオを重ね透かして皆さんにはどんな真実が見えてくるでしょうか。
推理はまとまるどころか、ますます煙に巻かれていくだけ。レナも全然わからないです。
For all of you warriors who never yielded to these 3 mysteries and kept on fighting, we present you with one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm, which we never originally planned on giving to you. Please enjoy it. Alright. I laid down some hints, but really, I mean, since I already saw the anime, I already kind of know the broad strokes of what's going to happen. It's not that big a deal to me. I'm more interested in character interactions because those are what might be cut out from the anime to make room for, you know, the story, for the mystery, for the intrigue, which we didn't get that much of in this one. I mean, you got Keiichi kind of freaking out most of the time about Satoko being abused, but the relationship between Satoko and Keiichi, they barely went into that for like 2 chapters, for 2 parts. And then right there, we saw some interactions between Shion and her sister, I guess, Shion and Keiichi. I don't know. So far, I think the anime did a good job of adapting the visual novel. I haven't seen any character assassinations or anything. I'm interested in chapter 4, but I don't know when I'll start that. This was kind of just a small project I kind of wanted to do. I'll get to it when I get to it.